how can you create a knowledge base from your transcripts without having an actual graph database, which means by avoiding all the technical friction around of this knowledge things. Okay, let me show you here. Yesterday, I had a very interesting conversation with my friend Robert, talking about how I can demonstrate my services about creating knowledge bases. And the truth is that we use graph databases where we store in a specific way the edges and the nodes, which means we say there the objects and the relationships between different objects. Now, when we want to create a demo to show someone how this is going to work and actually how this can evaluate the business, we have to do something less technical and very fast. So what I thought was to use the transcript from the conversation like this one and run a custom analysis based on my requirements into Claude right here or into ChatGPT or whatever, Gemini. Doesn't matter the LLM you use, guys. The most important is to guide the LLM how to analyze these transcripts, what information do you want it to extract, how to save them, and how to store them. Okay, and the next step is after the analysis is not to process them into the graph database, but it creates the Markdown document with nodes and edges, which means the objects and the relationships, giving exactly the schema of the ideal graph database for you. And this Markdown can be downloaded from your LLM browser, all right? And you can upload it back in another conversation to your LLM and tell him to use it as initial import and emphasize on the outputs of this knowledge base, and use the data from there. So in this new conversation, you can start putting questions like, what did he suggested? Why he suggested? Things like, what is his concerns in making the deal or saying yes into my offer, and so on. This is an easy way to demonstrate it. Only 1 or 2, 3, maybe transcripts. It's not for tons of conversation, and it's not that automated. That's why it's only for demo, right? Now, something important about the analysis of this transcript is to avoid all the very, very scientific approaches at this point, because what you have at the moment is valuable only for you. If you try to use the scientific methodologies for analyzing those transcripts, you're going to get lost, and specifically into tech terminology, which is quite new for those who just want to have a test. Let's give it a try. So I will tell him here, this is conversation with my friend Robert. I want you analyze it and give me the state schema per graph db as a starting point. Now, ideally, I would love to tell him specifically what I want to track. Like, for example, for me, it's very important to store the questions I'm asking and the questions I receive from the other side. So I investigate into my communication techniques and try to work on that, because, you know, English is not my native language and I want to improve it the most I can. So I want to see where my message is not that clear to the other side, where I don't understand it, or when I don't respond back. So storing questions and answers to understand where the conflicts are is pretty important for me. So this is what I would do. However, if you had a similar conversation, you may want to focus in something different. So you could definitely adjust this analysis. The point is to have the schema like this. All right, let's accept it. There's no reason to focus on that. Very important, however, is to put the following. I want you to create me the nodes and the edges from this run script, and also put on its node the description field, putting there some text describing this node, and similarly to edges, put the field of description where you will explain in text the relationship between the connected node. So on every node, on every edge, we will know exactly what this is about. So when we perform the query and we get specific nodes, we will know what exactly they are. And as you see, because I tested many times, and it's created, tried to create me a CSV immediately. But if we do it with a CSV, what's going to happen is we're going to get two different CSVs, one with the nodes and one other with relationships. What I want to have it, because I like everything to be in one place. So if we analyze 2, 3, 4 transcripts, we're going to have one output for every single conversation. So I want your output to be in a Markdown document. So into a Markdown document, what's going to happen is we're going to have the all the nodes and the edges in one place, in one document. So we're going to download it and we can upload it into a new conversation, and we can start putting these questions. Why this is different than feeding the transcript and performing questions? There is a very big difference here, because AI, when scans the MD file, it's easier for it to find the relative information and create the response back to us. So it's more confident and it's more specific. However, if we just bring the transcript of the conversation, it's not that easy to keep track all the information and perform conversation with back and forth questions and answers. But this MD file, it works perfect. It's a very good, I would say, simulation of what a knowledge base can do. But if you want to build something greater, like feeding books, feeding loads, feeding your entire team's transcripts, the approach is totally different. In that case, you definitely need graph database where you can store all of this information, analyze them following a scientific methodology, which is important, because in those cases, we have to find the patterns. And that will be your secret weapon and the ability to use actually AI super efficiently into your business. Let's see how it creates. It was a very long conversation, almost 90 minutes. And from this output, again, it's worthy to be mentioned that if we guide the AI how to analyze it, the entire schema and the structure will be definitely different. Now, just for our own example, I let it free to make the decision by itself. It's big. I like how long, because I see here the description is quite long. It's very important. Here is the thing for the description. When we perform a question into here, the AI will come and find a relative node. It will realize what is the related other node from the relationship, which is the edge. And using those those descriptions, it can figure out what is the meaning, what is the relationship, what is the purpose. So the response is more accurate back to us. And always we can ask for confidentiality by asking for a confident score of AI on his responses. We can ask also to bring us, where did you find this information? Why do you say that? So we can see how he translates this information. For the cases where we think, where do we need it? We actually need it when we get into conversation, not so often, like daily conversations. So we may lose the context of the project. So we need a place where we can find information we discussed in the past and information we want to find easily. That's pretty cool, right? Yeah, so if I download it as a Markdown, not as a PDF, I totally recommend Markdown because it's Markdown documents are easier to be scanned from AI. So if we download it and we get into another chat and we upload it, I say, this is the empty file with nodes and ages from a conversation with a friend of mine. Use this as a knowledge. Forgive me to respond me, to answer my questions. So we feed the knowledge base to LLM, he's scanning it, and he's ready to answer us our questions. Go ahead, we're like, okay, why, Robert? What was Robert's issue they discussed, for example? And we can bring more complex questions Right, that's it. I would suggest to go and play with that so you can see how this thing can help you making decisions and finding hidden information, as I call them, hidden gold into your conversation transcripts. Thanks.